Welcome to the 4 Bars Podcast. I'm Ken Leith.
And I'm Patty Leith. We are your hosts for some compelling dialogue, encouraging our listeners to strengthen their connections
And build strong communities, lifting each other up and connecting in ways that matter.
We named the podcast 4 Bars as a reference to how hard we work to find a 4 Bars connection on our devices.
And we wondered what could happen with relationships if we worked as hard at connecting.
Let's find out.
Welcome back to the 4 Bars Podcast. I'm Patty Leith, your co-host.
And I'm Ken Leith, co-host.
We're excited to have our listeners and viewers back. And if this is your first time listening, you'll learn a lot about the podcast. Today, we're going to explore a question that comes up from a lot of our viewers and listeners, and also people that we talk to about engaging in dialogue on the podcast. The question is this a podcast where we're looking at personal relationships or work relationships? And it really is a podcast where we're exploring community. And so it's exploring good connections in life, work, and community. Community is that common point inside of both our personal experiences and our work-related professional experiences. Ken and I, in our work as with our growth advisory firm, have seen a couple of really constant things in successful organizations. And one of those constants is there is a strong community inside of a successful organization that encourages people to work together, lift each other up, and have each other's backs and solve problems together. So we tend to look at community not only as my neighborhood or my wellness center or my book club, but also as my my workplace and my civic volunteerism and communities that we serve. And you might remember from our earlier podcasts, we talk about that community really has 3 ingredients: activities, places, and people. So anytime you are engaging with other people around an activity, whether it's work or personal, you actually are building community. And communities can be the villages, and it takes a village to really be our best selves, whether that's at work or at home. So we wanted to really kind of spend a little bit of time talking about community at work. And then we're going to also take a little bit of this podcast to let you know what we have planned for the next year. In our last podcast, we were kind of low-level celebrating our, we've reached a year, and we have just some really exciting things planned for year 2.
No, it's very exciting, and we're actually very, very thrilled that we're still able to do this 1 year later, and that we are growing in viewership and helping people. And in the end, that's what this is about: is how do we connect with people ourselves, and how do people connect with each other to the point of community? What does that look like?
Yeah.
And in our work environment, as in our other environments, community is one to where we find out, how do we fit in? How do we work together? How do we engage, interact with people? Because really those ways that we make that happen are the methodologies that we use to almost find our place within a community. Mm-hmm. And that, again, within our business, yes, we will have a role, for example, what our job role is. But even within job role, if I'm working on a team, or even I'm an individual contributor, and I will still interact with teams, it is how I'm able to understand them. And by understanding them more, I'm able to work with them and help them feel comfortable with me, myself.
Yeah.
And that brings the ability to have trust. All communities, internally, externally, business, and community, those communities really are built upon trust. We can all come into communities with different values to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But when a business environment also, when I signed up for working for an organization, they have values and things. So I'm signing up and agreeing with those values.
True. Yes,
Yeah.
true.
But with really strong companies, what it means is I can, as long as I say, yes, I sign up and I work within those values, when I can come in and be my authentic self in a business community and be productive, it's empowering. And we hear that from people all the time. It's one of the most empowering things, because people want to come to work to be able to feel, I want to be a part of this team, but I want to be able to be a part of that team being who I am as a human being.
Yeah. And there is a lot of research that shows that top talent leaves organizations because they don't feel like they're a part of a team. And building that community, building that engagement, it's an intentional focus inside of an organization. It happens kind of organically in some instances, but to really get a healthy, strong, inclusive community that supports belonging in an organization in ways that enables safety to point out things that we need to be thinking about, to try to solve problems, that takes effort on everybody's part. And yet non-doing it is the reason that top people leave companies.
It is very true. And as we've seen in our work with Edges, is that the things we just mentioned in the way we look at what happens in a office environment, a business environment, really it comes down to, in the end, it's the culture. Does that culture promote positivity, accountability? By the way, we believe accountability is a great word, and there are a lot of engagement surveys out there that talk about the more that there is clarity on accountability, then the happier employees are, and the happier they are to be within an organization working there. But it is the culture that defines how well the interactions are, how well we blend together, how we are able to solve problems together. And it ensures, again, within generally all good cultures, there is that feeling of safety. And I feel safety within it. And that's, again, it empowers me to come to work next Monday. And when I go to work, I can feel safe. Psychologically, I feel safe just coming in and being able to do my work and have my friends in my community group within the work, because you have subsets of community within companies also.
And so I think, Ken, you're hitting on some really, really good points. Community is a part of everything that we do.
Yes.
And it's going to happen organically. And if we want it to be really strong, we have to get more intentional about it. Let's think about a neighborhood, for example. That's a community. We can all not come out of our houses and not know each other's names. We're still a community, and we're going to come together for the POA or whatever. But if we're intentional about it, we can build strong community. We can create bonds, and we can really create a village that makes all of us better. You have that same choice in work, but what you're saying is really it also has to be integrated into the culture. This commitment to building healthy communities needs to be integrated into the culture for an organization to be successful at that. But if they do, their relationship building is going to be stronger, and their ability to deliver customer service in whatever industry they're in is going to be stronger.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is a really great example, because sometimes people will say, well, if our culture is not right and our communities aren't right within the business, then it's going to take a long time to change it. And it could. However, the case study I'm alluding to is one where it went very, very quickly. For anyone out there who follows NFL football, for years, coming from the Washington, D.C. area, I was a Washington fan. And good years, bad years, it didn't matter. However, until just a year ago, the Washington team had become one that was looked at as the lowest in organizations. And it came out in their surveys from their players and their employees. They were all very low. Community had quit on them, and people had total distrust for ownership. And because of some of their decisions and who they brought in to lead and manage, they had distrust in those, and they had lack of any thought that it could ever get better. And so when the owner sold to Josh Harris and his ownership group, everyone was really built up in that area, and it's like their hope came instantly. But everyone was like, okay, it's going to take a while. No one, including ourselves, thought that what we observed could happen, which Josh Harris and his ownership team selected a very professional, very good general manager. And then that general manager in turn selected what he thought would be a very strong head coach based upon some of his behaviors. And if you haven't don't know much about Dan Quinn, one of the things I've read about him throughout is he used to coach the Atlanta Falcons years ago, went to the Super Bowl. But when he left there, he spent a year or more, and he's talked about it, written about it, where he just went out and he reviewed his games. He reviewed how he managed, how he coached, and how he even led his assistant coaches. And he and documented all this. And then he started to say, when I get another opportunity someday, this is the way I'm going to do it. And he rewrote his entire playbook about how he do it. And he has come to Washington with that playbook. He surrounded himself with very professional assistant coaches. And that team had a great year last year, yes. They selected Jaden Daniels. Some people say, well, they got lucky because he was still there at number 2. Whether that happened or not, yeah, I could say yes or no. But what I did see after that was they put together plans that are now attracting players. They couldn't attract players to come there as free agents anymore. Now there are players who do want to play for them. And there is a entire region that is energized by this decision of the NFL saying we can't have this gentleman own a team anymore. And bringing in that new ownership was the spark that did it.
Yeah. Well, John Gordon, who's a leadership writer that I follow on social media, actually did a post about it. You can sense the community. You can see it with the coaches. You can see it with the players. And because they've changed the culture and they're building a community, that community is on its way to becoming great. Yeah. We're not having the best year this year, but everybody knew that it was going to take a little bit of time. They have a lot of new players. But what has changed is the entire atmosphere is more positive. So it can be done quickly, but it has to be done intentionally. And
you're right. They are a work in progress still, but I will say we're only going to game 3 this week.
Yeah, I know. So it's true. It's true.
It could still be a very good year. But
and there's
nothing
about this Commanders turnaround story that is not to love if you're thinking about culture and community in the workplace, or even not in the workplace. There's nothing not to love about it, even if you aren't a Washington fan. It's really a substantial story of relationships.
Yes,
and people respect each other, and they matter, and they care, and they build each other up. On that note, I will also say that we have a lot of clients that engage in the development of employee resource groups that are specific communities inside of an organization based on perhaps their heritage or their sexual preference or their age, male, female. There's generally a lot of different groups. And the purpose of these groups is to build even more community inside of the organizations in which individuals can come together who have similar challenges and support each other on the solutions that might be necessary to make that better. But there's also an engagement of people who may not be directly in that group to be allies for that group. So that's also an extremely effective, intentional community building that takes place inside of an organization. And my hats are off to the organizations that we know and those that we don't that are doing that great thing.
Yeah, and a positive community within an organization, you can spot that.
You can.
You can see the interaction.
When you walk in the door.
Yeah. You can see there's engagement.
Yeah.
There's generally a little bit more higher energy within that team than you walk in there. So when you think about that in the future, take a look at your team.
Yeah.
And if you think that it's not there, then talk to others, because one of the things anyone can do is within communities, you have sub-communities. So if you start with your community, even if it's not the perfect situation, and you bring people together and you start to really connect and help to build up the spirit of the team, if you would, then it can grow from there.
Yeah.
We've seen that happen within organizations. We actually wrote a book with another co-writer with us who had asked us to be a part of that. And when the book focuses on how to identify the culture within your within your business community. Yeah. And by doing that, then what do I do? How do I influence others to be able to make some change as necessary? So we share all that to say that organizations, as Patty said, they are communities. but the community starts with everyone starting to come together on the same way that we want to work in this scenario, because it's a work environment.
Yeah.
How do we want to work? How do we want to engage? How do we want to communicate? All of that will determine,
Right.
how I feel about my organization.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We wanted to really address this because we have had a lot of questions recently, viewers, listeners, and people that we're talking with about getting involved. It also to queue up some of what we have coming. We are a business growth advisory firm, and we, in the first 6 months of 26, we will be really exploring the fundamentals of growth for an organization, and we'll be interviewing C-level people inside of organizations that have seen substantial growth about their story, and they are stories of grit and caring for each other and respecting one another and solving problems together and risk-taking. Like just some of the stories that we've heard with the guests that have agreed to participate. I just cannot wait to share this with our listeners and our viewers. And we'll be exploring the importance of community and collaboration inside of their organization as they grew. So we did want to sort of cue that up. Cannot wait for that series to start. We'll be kicking it off in January. And we'll have 6 sessions around each of the major components that are important for a growing organization to be looking at and thinking about. So we are so excited to be doing our podcast offsite, not in this room, but at a event at Blake Street here in town, where we will be offering a panel on building intergenerational communities. We're calling it
From Vinyl to Viral.
which I love, and Ken came up with it.
And really what this is, we do some things away from 4 Bars and away from our everyday work. And one of it's the projects we work on is called Full Signal, where we bring people together and we talk about topics that they want to talk about in groups. And we help them kind of build upon those, maybe in some cases solve for them, for themselves or as a collective. And within that, we ask them always, what would you like to hear about? And one of the constants that came up was, we would like to learn more about intergenerational interactions and the impact of that on our communities. And there's plenty of information out there. So we will be meeting and moderating a panel that has 5 different generations. So going from Gen Z up to traditionalist. And so we're very excited to be able to have these really great storytellers who are going to come together. They're going to share the stories. And we have 5 different areas that we're going to have them explore. And then they will have the opportunity to then get questions also from the audience. So it's going to be a very collaborative, very wide open thought process, but it's really going to talk about and get to the point of, where are we really not different? We're similar.
Yeah.
And if there are any differences, what are some of those drivers of those differences?
And our youngest panelist is 24 and our oldest is 82. So we're just going to have a collection of fabulous stories around ways to build it and reasons to build it, and the benefits of these connections across different generations. So we are so excited to be able to put this into the podcast format and share it with more people, because Full Signal is very similar to 4 Bars in its emphasis. It is about developing an awareness around you to build community. This community is the village that makes us great.
Yes, and we always love feedback and questions. So whether it's from a few minutes ago, we were talking about communities within our work environment, or about vinyl to viral. If you have questions or want to know more about it, please drop those in on the website here.
Yes,
and we will respond back to you and connect with you in order to answer any questions you may have.
Yep, 4barspodcast.com. Or you can reach Ken and I directly on getedges.com. But we look forward to this, and we can't wait to share it with you. So thanks for listening. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll be back soon.
We'll look forward to seeing you next time.
Yes, thanks.
The Four Bars podcast has been brought to you by Edges Inc., a growth advisory firm based in Bentonville, Arkansas. I founded the company in 2001.
Edges promotes growth of people, companies, and ideas. Our team collaboration tool, called Interface Methods, is a basis for teams to work together more collaboratively, understand each other, and accept differences and address challenges together.
We also started a nonprofit called Unform Your Bias. We teach kids and their adult influencers how to utilize storytelling as a means to reduce bias in the world. We hope you'll check us out, subscribe to our podcast, and look at our websites.